Hi, Angus. As a teacher who tries to differentiate and make connections with my students, this chapter on authentic education resonated with me more than the last one. Is this what we should be doing? Rejecting standardized approaches and going with authentic education instead?
I'm glad it resonated with you, and it does offer a more realistic picture of diverse students and the complexities of learning. But the authors don't want to set up a standardized and authentic education as opposites, or say that they are the only possibilities for educators. It's better to see authentic education as maybe a next step in thinking about learning and teaching. In some ways, it is a reaction against standardized approaches, since it acknowledges that learning is complex and that learners are diverse. But in other ways, it continues aspects of standardized approaches. For example, it still assumes that learning is only an individual thing, not paying much attention to group dynamics or collective learning. Also, authentic education does not really challenge the curriculum and what students should be learning. It just critiques the how of learning. We'll see more of a focus on collective dynamics and critiques of standardized curricula in the next moment on democratic citizenship education.
Okay, so let's focus on authentic for now. What motivated authentic thinkers like Piaget to break from standardized education?
I think a big motivation was that standardized education's metaphors of the acquisition and transfer of objective facts were just way too simplistic for the complexities of learning and learner diversity. Students won't necessarily get a lesson just because you present it to them logically. Authentic educators try to be more realistic, focusing on how learners learning and knowing are always rooted in their own body and personal experiences. That is, what we know is always subjective. As a realistic and effective teacher, you need to acknowledge and deal with that.
Okay, one big idea is in these chapters was the difference between traditional correspondence theories and coherence theories like constructivism. Can you clarify that distinction for me?
Sure, it's related to the objective subjective thing above. Remember that traditional correspondence or conduit perspectives treat knowledge as an object, a truth about the world that is somehow acquired by individuals. Learners know something if their internal subjective belief matches outwards objective reality. Coherence theories reject this. In the first place, it's unrealistic. People's beliefs may vary a great deal, even when they have the same experiences. One obvious example is how the students in the same class may understand a lesson very differently, or not at all. Furthermore, even our views about what is objectively true evolve over time, as I pointed out in my article on medical knowledge and education. So instead of focusing on whether people's beliefs correspond with objective truths, coherence theory looks to how our beliefs actually evolve and how these ideas are reflections of our biological history, personal experiences, and cultural contexts. To put it another way, the meaning we get from any experience is just as much about us and our background as it is about that experience. For example, a dog will interpret odors in the air much differently than we do, and people from different cultures may experience the same behavior, for example, burping loudly after dinner, as more or less socially acceptable.
So, authentic educators are saying that all beliefs are subjective?
Kind of. But that doesn't mean that our beliefs are just fanciful creations. They still have to work in our lives. Actually, the more sophisticated coherence theorists, like the authors of the book we're reading, are really trying to move beyond the whole objective subjective inner outer correspondence view of knowledge.
So, what makes knowledge real knowledge if it doesn't correspond with objective truth? How did coherence theorists explain that?
Instead of saying that our beliefs have to match some external and eternal truth, coherence theorists say that our beliefs have to be coherent. That is, they have to fit and work in the context of our lives. Part of this is internal coherence. That is, our beliefs need to go well together. For example, we don't believe in both creation and evolution, or that 2 plus 2 equals both 4 and 5. Our beliefs also have to be externally coherent. That is, they need to allow us to interact effectively with other people and the rest of the world. For example, if I believe that I can fly from the top of a building and try it out, then I won't have a coherent and effective relationship with the world, to say the least, especially when I hit the concrete at high speed. And if I think that I am an emperor and everyone should obey my wishes, then I'll probably be locked up.
What if your beliefs work really well in the world? Doesn't that mean they're objectively true?
No, coherence does not mean objective truth because people can have all kinds of different beliefs that allow them to interact effectively with the world. For example, different cultures have had different ideas about agriculture for thousands of years, but if they're still around, they were able to feed themselves. Nor does coherence mean pure subjectivity, because the world limits what beliefs and actions actually work. So the authors are not really choosing sides between objective and subjective here. They are trying to move beyond them. We'll find out in later chapters about how coherence theories apply beyond isolated individuals to social groups and even the more than human ecological world. But in this chapter, we're staying focused on individuals.